Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So it is it's 8:56, so just before 9 a.m. Here in New York City. I hope everybody's well. I know that for some people it's going to still be Friday depending on which part of the world you're in. For others it's going to be Sunday, but for me here in Queens, New York, or at least in a particular area of Queens, New York, because it's just so freaking huge. Right. It is almost 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, which is actually pretty nice outside. We had like rainy weather. I think it was like Thursday, and then yesterday was nice, and today looks pretty nice, though I haven't gone outside yet. See what happens. So, I've been really busy this week with work. Let's just say that sometimes being good at your job is a blessing and a curse, especially when you just when you're asked to do a lot in a very short amount of time. And I'm sure we've all, especially if you've had a desk job or whatever type of job, I'm sure that we've all sort of been through that experience. But I wanted to focus on two articles today. So first is the one, and I'm certain that if you follow the sort of same people in same circles as I do, you've no doubt already seen a few videos about this one, which is Idris Elba's character of Luthor, right? Luthor isn't authentic enough, according to a BBC executive who is a black British woman. And I wanted to cover that. And this, let me see if it loads. This article here, which is about a video game, right? That, as it says here, this is from the New York Post. Video game seeks to fight racism by putting players in the shoes of a black father, right? So I was initially going to cover these two topics separately, but then I decided to sort of not necessarily cover them together, but to just give a brief overview of what they are and then my opinions on it, because I see in both these articles this, in my opinion, erroneous idea of blackness, right, or the black experience and what makes a person black, right? Uh, because that especially with the Idris Elba example is what's in question, right? His character apparently is not authentically black to this particular BBC uh, executive, right? And especially as I'm technically a half black person, but most people recognize, especially if you don't know that I'm a biracial woman, most people look at me and treat me as an African American. I grew up in the African American community in a predominantly African American neighborhood. My mother is African American, and so dealt mainly with her side of the family. So yeah, culturally speaking, it's not wrong to say that I am an African American, right? Even if my ethnic racial makeup doesn't technically fit, right? But I have, for by and large, been treated as a black woman in America, which I take no issue with. I don't expect people to look at me and automatically assume that there's Native American in my family or in my heritage or bloodline. I know that I have Afrocentric features. I don't expect people to just look at me and know that I'm a mixed woman. But anyway, or a biracial woman, I guess, would be the more appropriate term. But as I was saying, that this erroneous idea in the black community that there is a certain experiences, right, that define blackness, or that blackness and the black experience is some sort of monolith when it is not. Right, and I want to be clear. I'm certain that this happens in other communities, no doubt, but given the subject matter, naturally, I'm going to be focusing in on the black community. So let me just try to first briefly summarize these two articles. Right, so let's start with the one everybody's talking about. Right, Idris Elba's Luther isn't authentic because he doesn't have a black friend, says BBC executive. So first thing, little sidebar if you want to call it that. I've seen a few videos, especially from channels I like and who I follow, whose titles have said that Idris Elba is not black enough. And I generally don't really comment on how other people title their videos, but I think in this case, maybe it's just my professional brain. kicking in, but I think in this case I have to say something because, and I don't think that people who have used this type of title mean anything bad or ill will, but I think that with titles saying, oh, Idris Elba isn't black enough, you're shifting the focus in the wrong direction. It's not Idris Elba. It's not the man himself, the performer. It's not his blackness being called into question in this article or by the BBC exec's comments. It's the character of Luther and his blackness that's being called into question. So I think that using a title like Idris Elba isn't black enough sort of is misleading, I would say. And I don't think that's intentional per se. I get it. People, especially to a American audience, right? If you say Luther isn't black enough, most Americans probably aren't going to know what you're talking about, or possibly think, "What do you mean, Luther Vandross?" Like, who passed away several years ago. May he rest in peace. But I get it. I understand using Idris Elba's name to get attention to your video. I just don't think that particular title is the best way to do it because, again, it can be misleading, leading the viewer, especially if they don't have any prior knowledge of the situation, to think that it's Idris Elba's blackness being called into question and not the character he's playing. So I just wanted to sort of just put that out there. Again, I mean no disrespect, but kind of kind of irked me a bit. So let's focus in on the article itself, right? It says here, and this is from IndieWire, Idris Elba's Luther isn't authentic because he doesn't have black friends, says BBC exec. BBC diversity chief Miranda Wayland has ignited backlash over her comments over Elba's fan favorite detective, right? So in the article itself, here's what it says. It says BBC diversity chief Miranda Wayland has stirred up controversy on social media due to a discussion at the Digital MIP TV conference in which she said Idris Elba's popular crime series Luther is not authentic when it comes to black storytelling. As Wayland explained, when Luther first came out, everybody loved the fact that Idris Elba was in there, a really strong black character lead. We all fell in love with him. Who didn't, right? But after you got into about the second series, which to my understanding, a series in England is the equivalent of a season here in the US. So in the US, it would be season two, right? You kind of got like you kind of like, okay, he doesn't have any black friends, he doesn't eat any Caribbean food, this doesn't feel authentic. Remember, she's the one claiming this. Wayland continued, it's great to have those big landmark shows with those key characters, but it's about making sure everything around them, their environment, their culture, the set is absolutely reflective. It will be very much about how we can make sure that this program is authentic in the terms of storytelling, right? So according to her, right, the character doesn't feel authentic because he doesn't have black friends. According to her, again, I'm not familiar with the show, so I cannot ascertain whether or not that comment is true. But I haven't seen anything yet disproving that. But again, I don't know the context of the show. I don't follow it. I don't follow BBC's programming. I barely follow American programming. I don't watch a lot of TV, right? And then, of course, her saying that he doesn't eat any Caribbean food. Well, as many people have pointed out, right, Idris Elba, the man himself, is from Ghana, right, which is in Africa, right? So I'm not saying he can't eat Caribbean food or like it, but it's unlikely, right? The Caribbean's all the way in the west, right? Or is it the east? Geography is never my thing, right? But that's the Caribbean. Is like South America, Central America, all that, right? And Africa is all the way across, right? Remember all the explorers from like the 1500s trying to find a way to India and all that, right? So yeah, her statement is very, in my opinion, I can't say I'm offended because, quite frankly, I'm not surprised, and I'll explain why. But I find her statement very ill-informed, right? Given both Idris's background, and I can tell you for myself that I don't eat Caribbean food. I have nothing against Caribbean food, but I've had some. I've tried some Jamaican food, and it just doesn't really sit with me. I actually don't eat a lot of soul food, right? I have a Korean supervisor at work who loves his soul food. But yeah, I don't. I'm actually not a big fan. I grew up on the stuff as a little kid, and as I got older, I stopped eating it. It's not really for me. And again, nothing against it. Plenty of people, black and non-black, like quote unquote soul food, right? Potato salad, stuffing, grits, and all this other stuff, right? Biscuits, cornbread, peach cobbler, right? And that's fine. That's wonderful. But it's not for me, and that's fine too. But I guess to her, because I don't eat Caribbean food, I am not authentically black enough, right? 36 years of being a black woman in America, raised by her black family, but because I don't eat Caribbean food, I am not black enough in this lady's eyes. All right, so that's that article. And then the second article is about, let's see if it loads, is about this video game, right, to fight racism by putting players in the shoes of a black father, right? Get rid of that. So, according to this, right, the game, which is going to be called Our America, puts the viewer in the driver's seat as a black father takes his son to school. Along the way, they are pulled over by the police, leading to life or death choices. The audience has to go through different scenarios, whether it's subtle or overt racism, and has to navigate conversations and interactions, explained to 25-year-old Young. Well, there's your first thing right there. He's very young. He's living up to his name. He's only 25. I have about 11 years on him in age, and so I view things quite a bit differently, and that's no doubt a reason as to why I've lived longer. And it explains here that when he was 16 years old, his dad took him to buy a car, right? And then it says that the cops pulled him over, and that when his father reached into the glove box for the registration, he said the officer was ready to pull out his gun, right? Again, I have no idea, I have no way of ascertaining whether this account is true or accurate to what actually happened. Remember, this is from the memory of a 25-year-old man re, uh, recalling something that happened when he was 16, right? That could sincerely be his viewpoint of things, but it may not necessarily be the truth of what actually happened. Or it could be the truth of what happened. Don't know, right? Nothing mentions here the actual officer who pulled him over. Doesn't mention his father. It's just his account, his recounting of what happened 9 years ago, right? So it says here that he's really focused on trying to bring to light a situation that a lot of people are not aware of, and give people a chance to experience what it's like to be black in America, he says, right? And then it goes into about, the killing of Dante Wright, right? And all this other stuff during a traffic stop, and George Floyd, and more stuff, right? And look, um, not a video game I would personally have interest in. But if he wants to make it, I say let him make it. He got a $25,000 grant, according to this article. And while I don't see how you can do much with 25 grand in the video game industry, even in the indie scene, he wants to make it. If he can find an audience, let him. I don't care. All I can tell you is that I'm not playing it because I don't play video games based on the color of my skin or my gender. And I certainly don't play video games to experience regular life. I want to play as the super soldier or the super spy or the master martial artist, stuff like that, right? I want to play as Tyrus Flair and summon dragons and burn everything. I don't want to play as, oh, we're gonna go driving, we're gonna go driving. I don't even like driving games, so this really is not for me. Now, the interesting thing is that he talks about a video game to combat racism, and I actually do firmly agree that video games can combat racism. But I think they do it by simply being as they are, right? These very international, uh, creative medium and pastime for now millions, if not billions, of people across the globe. Remember, some of the most popular, longest enduring video games and video game franchises originated in Japan, right? And many video games, also even made in the West, are very diverse. Whether it's they have female leads or they take place in different countries or different time periods, right? Or they have flat out aliens who are the leads of the story or major characters. You look at like Mass Effect, right? There are video games out there that have black leads or have prominent black characters. And I think that, at least for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, playing video games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Tekken and Soul Calibur, right? Those are incredibly diverse just for the sheer fact that it's very international in their choice of fighter, right? You get people from Spain, from France, from the US, from Japan, China, India, all different types of countries. So that alone, I think, um, really shows how anti-racist, I guess you would say, that video games are and can be, because they don't really limit themselves, in particular the Japanese products, don't really limit themselves to a particular narrative or theme or part of the world. I mean, one of the most beloved and enduring video games is Super Mario Brothers, right? And what is Mario? He's a chubby Italian plumber made by a Japanese dude. We love you, Miyamoto-san. Right, but that imagination is what I think makes gaming, even with all of its current issues, such a wonderful medium when it's used properly, when it's free of agenda, or where the only agenda is just to make an interesting video game. I think you get all the diversity in the world, right? But again, that's just me. But now that I've summarized these two articles, I want to touch upon the common theme, the common thread that connects them, which is what is actually mentioned in this article right here at the right in the middle, right where it says, "I am really focused on just trying to bring light to a situation that a lot of people are not aware of and give people a chance to experience what it's like to be black in America." Right, and then you go back to the BBC one, right, and it says here that and then in Luther, right, he doesn't have any black friends. He doesn't eat Caribbean food. He doesn't feel authentic, right? So this idea of being black in a particular country, right, or having an authentic black experience, right, is what connects these two. And to me, this idea is, first of all, gatekeeping, which is not new in the black community, right? Just like you have gatekeeping in fandoms, right, where some person who's older or has more experience or more knowledge or whatever sets a completely arbitrary subjective standard, usually related to themselves, right? And then demands that anybody, especially those coming into the group, right, meet this standard. For example, if I said, well, you're only a real Street Fighter fan if you've played Street Fighter 2, and you're only a real Street Fighter fan if you played the Alpha series in the 1990s. That would be gatekeeping, right? Because that's the standard that I would be setting. That's related to me and to me alone, and is something that could not be achieved by everybody in the Street Fighter fandom, in the Street Fighter fighting game community, right? Some people did play Street Fighter 2 like I did as a little kid. Some did play the Alpha series, right? Some grew up with it, as I have. Others came in later. Others came in with Street Fighter 3, or they came in with those, what was it, EX or X or whatever it was. Some of them found Street Fighter through crossover games like, Street Fighter versus X-Men or Marvel versus Capcom. Others still, can discover Street Fighter more recently, right? Street Fighter 4, Super 4, 5, stuff like that. They're all Street Fighter fans, right? They have different levels of knowledge, different personal histories with it, right? And that's fine. Some are going to be very, very intense about it and very, deep into everything, and some are going to be a bit more casual, but they're all fans. Now they're at different levels of fandom, right? But they're all fans, right? The fact that they play and like Street Fighter is what makes them a fan, right? But if I were to say, oh, you're only really a fan if you've played Street Fighter 2, that would be me setting an arbitrary standard that is based on no one else's opinion but my own. And as we're seeing here with Miss Wayland, right, who looks like this, right? Interesting that she's gonna say, oh, it's not authentically black enough, and yet she straightens her hair, or at least in this picture, her hair is straight, right? Which to many in the black hair community would be seen as conforming to a European, aka white, beauty standard, right? So it's interesting that she's going to have this hairstyle. I have no idea if she still has it, but this is what most of the pictures of her show, right? But she would straighten her hair, right, and alter her natural hair, right? Which, believe me, natural black hair looks more like mine than it does that, right? That's clearly perming, or she got her hair straightened or whatever, right? So that she would call Idris Elba's character inauthentically black, right? When she's, according to many in the black hair community, conforming to a white beauty standard. So there is a certain irony here, in my personal opinion. But the thing is, she, in my opinion, has absolutely no right to say that this character is not authentically black just because the character lacks what she defines as blackness, right? Not having black friends or not eating Caribbean food. Not every black person eats Caribbean food. There are plenty who do, and that's fine. But not every black person eats Caribbean food. Same way, not every black person likes basketball or football, or not every black person likes rap. I don't listen to a lot of rap. It doesn't make me any less black. It makes me a black person who doesn't listen to rap. That's literally it, right? Or the other article, right, talking about how being pulled over, right? How being pulled over is somehow part of the experience of what it's like being black in America. Well, I've never been pulled over. Not to be fair, I don't drive. But I've been in cars with various people of various ethnicities, right? Friends driving me around, or we're traveling together, or I'm in a cab or whatever. Been in plenty of different cars with different types of people, including blacks, and guess what? Was not pulled over, right? And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to act as if, traffic stops or racial profiling or driving while black or things like that don't happen. They do. But what frustrates me about this article and about the other article is this idea is that it's some sort of thing that all blacks experience. Same way Miss Wayland's comments make it seem like all blacks love Caribbean food. And that's simply not the truth, right? Whether these two people realize it or not, they are gatekeeping. They are setting arbitrary standards for what blackness, whether it's blackness in America or blackness in England, is. And that's not their place. Nobody voted you as the representative of the black people. You don't have any say about what it is to be black. You'll find many people who share your experiences and your values, and you'll find many people um, who don't. And yet, guess what? You're all the same ethnicity, but you're leading very different lives. For example, me, Beyonce, and Oprah all have two things in common: we are black and we are female. But that is literally it. We've all had different life experience, different talents, make vastly different amounts of money, right? Some of us would have experienced racism as a regular part of our lives, right? Oprah being a much older woman, she would have grown up in America that would have been more openly racist toward her when she was younger. I didn't grow up with that. I've had the privilege thus far of not experiencing any real racism in real life. Nobody treats me different. Nobody treats me as lesser because of my gender or the color of my skin. And I've been very fortunate to not have those type of experiences, right? But that hasn't that here's what I'm trying to say. I'm not denying the experience of those who have been treated bad because of their race. I know that's happened. I know it still happens today. But just because it's happened to you doesn't mean it's happened to me. And that's my thing. That's my issue with people who make these type of statements. Right? You're only black if you've been pulled over. You're only black if you eat Caribbean food. You're only black if you've had bad experiences with white people and you're mad at them for it. You're only black if you have black friends. Those things don't determine blackness. You know what determines blackness? That determines blackness. Growing up in black culture, growing up in a black community, that determines blackness. That is it. That's all you need. As the saying goes, all I gotta do is stay black and die. That's literally all you need. And yet you have people like this guy making this video game, right? And this BBC uh, diversity officer trying to state what blackness is, right? And I'm like, that is just so, quite frankly, it's so stupid in my personal opinion. And this has been part of the black community for a long time, right? I've grown up with it. I have been told, not often, I want to be clear. I'm fortunate that this hasn't happened to me often. But I have been told more than once in life that I'm acting white because I listen to rock music. They forget about Jimi Hendrix, right? Or the lead singer of the band Living Color, right? Cult of Personality, right? All that stuff. Or Ice-T when he was the lead singer of the band Body Count, right? With the song Cop Killer and all that. They conveniently forget about all that, right? Or people like Prince, right? Who was a guitarist and all that. But because I listen to hard rock, I'm suddenly not black enough. I've been told this. I'm not black enough because I don't listen to rap and soul and all that. I'm not black enough because I speak with good diction and I don't use slang and I don't speak with ebonics and all that. I have been told these things, right? That I am not really black because I don't conform to some sort of um, offensive stereotype, right? That I don't do the whole yo homie yo type of thing. And I know plenty of people who do who love rap and soul and who speak with slang or ebonics and all that. And it's like if they want to do that, that's their choice. I'm not going to stop them. But why do you get on me for not living up to that? Right? Why are you trying to call my identity into question? Right? What did I do to you except disprove this very narrow idea that you have of what the black experience is? Right? I'm reminded of an episode of Fresh Prince, right, where Will and Carlton try to get into a fraternity, right, and throughout the events of the episode, it's eventually revealed that Will, streetwise Will, right, got into the fraternity, but Carlton, who's very privileged and especially according when compared to Will, would be very white, right? Being a huge fan of Barry Manilow and all this other stuff, right? And eventually, Carlton and the head of the frat have a confrontation, right? And he says something to the effect of like, being black isn't something that I'm trying to be. It's something that I am, right? So why are you trying to trip me up? Right, keep in mind, this was from a comedy show from the 1990s. So 30 years later, we still have people trying to determine what blackness is, right? And even at the end of that episode, I think it's Uncle Phil who, asks in this very frustrated way, he's like, why do we keep doing this to each other? When are we going to stop doing this to each other? Or things in the black community, for example, like colorism, which is a real thing, right? Which for those who are not familiar with it, colorism is this belief. And I want to be clear: not all African Americans have this belief, but a lot do, right? That uh, if you are a black person and your skin tone is lighter, right? If it's light, very very light to the point of like looking like a white person, right? Think of like people like Steph Curry, right, or Halle Berry, both of which happen to be biracial, interestingly enough, right? But they have very light skin, right? And it's this belief that um, white America, right, mainstream white America, will treat you better if you have a lighter skin tone. That you'll have more privilege, get more opportunities, experience less hardships and racism or whatnot if your skin is lighter. Contrast if your skin is darker, then people are going to treat you worse, right? That's the general, at least what I understand it, general crux of the belief in colorism, right? And it is based in a real thing where back in the 20s and 30s there were some African American people who were so light skinned they could pass as white people, at least in skin tone, right? But this prevailing belief, right, even though we are long past the 20s and 30s and 40s, and we live in America, or in the case of Idris, in England, that is much different than those times. These type of beliefs still persist, right? And it's very sad. It's very sad that after all this time, there are some people in the black community who are just so narrow minded and can't seem to accept the fact that blackness isn't necessarily what they think it is, right? That blackness can look different and be different because, believe it or not, blacks are individual people, which means we're going to have different experiences. There are going to be a lot of things that are similar and a lot of things that are different. But this is what we have to live with. The human condition um, only changes but so much. And again, I have no doubt that there are issues like this in other communities. But hopefully, hopefully, as we move forward, we can start putting these very limiting beliefs about ethnic groups and communities to bed. Right, the character of Luther is not more or less black because he doesn't eat Caribbean food or doesn't have black friends. Right, you are not more or less black just because you have been pulled over in a car by the police. Right, as I said earlier, your blackness is not determined by any of these incidents, right, or these little idiosyncrasies in your life. If you're black, right, then all you've got to do is stay black and die. If you're black, then guess what? Your black experience is authentic and it is valid. It doesn't have to live up to some other black person's idea. It's your life. You're the one who has to live it. You're the one who has to endure it. And in the end, that's all that matters. And there should be space in the black community and for all other communities for different types of blackness or Asianness or whiteness or whateverness. There shouldn't be this arbitrary idea, this checklist of, oh, you have to have experienced these things, and then you are really a black person or a white person or an Asian person or whatever it is. No, no. It's your life. That's what makes it valid. That's what makes it part of the black experience or the Asian experience or anything else. The fact that you are part of this ethnic group and you are living life. That is all you need. So whatever you are, stay that way and rock on. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Bye.